So this lesson is research methods, and we're going to look at validity. So just to recap, what I'd like you to do from last lesson, which was reliability, complete these things. So define the word reliability, give me 2 ways that we could assess reliability and 2 ways that we could improve reliability. So if you want to pause the video and complete that activity. Thank you. So when we're defining reliability, you should have the idea that reliability is consistency. That's consistency with the method that we're using. And we need to assess this using different things. So we can assess it using split half method, we can assess it using test retest, and we can assess it using inter-interviewer or inter-observer reliability. Make sure you understand what those words mean, so look back at last lesson, look back at the keywords and the definitions of those keywords. If you haven't got a keyword glossary already, then that's something that I would advise you have for research methods, so you can see what all of these keywords mean. 2 ways of improving reliability. You could have things such as standardization, practice, operationalizing your behavioral categories, controlling your experiment as much as possible, clarifying your questions if it's a questionnaire. So again, look back at your notes from last lesson, to make sure that you've got the correct answers to those questions. If you are unsure then of anything, just drop it in the comments under the assignment on Classroom and I'll try and clarify that for you. Okay, so we're going to look at validity. Validity and reliability people get confused about. Reliability is consistency, validity is truthfulness. So with regards to validity, we're looking at, are we measuring what we set out to measure? So am I doing what I say I'm doing? Am I being truthful? Is what I'm testing in this experiment actually testing that thing? If I'm looking at aggression, am I actually testing aggression? Am I measuring what I set out to measure? There's several things that can affect validity, as you can see at the side. We've got investigator effects, demand characteristics, confounding variables, social desirability, poorly operationalised behavioural categories, and the sample that we use. Those are just a few things that can affect validity. In the exam, you'll probably see an item, and in the item there'll be several things that could affect validity, and you would be asked how could we assess that, and how could we improve that. So you need to be looking for things like this in your item to see what could affect validity and what could we test there. So we'll look at 2 types of validity. We'll look at internal validity and external validity. I'll explain what those are, how we assess them, and what we could do to improve each. So internal validity. This is the idea of our investigation itself. Okay, our experiment, our questionnaire, our observation. We need to make sure that all of the variables are controlled apart from the one that we are manipulating. So this means that we need to make sure that there's no demand characteristics there, there's no confounding variables, there's no social desirability, etc. So internal validity, this is the idea that we control everything apart from the one that we manipulate, which is the independent variable. We can assess internal validity using phase validity or concurrent validity. So phase validity is if we look at the questions that we have on a test, do they relate to the topic that we're looking at? So say I'm looking at aggression and I'm doing a questionnaire and I'm giving it to parents and I want them to rate their child. If I give them that questionnaire, that needs to be measuring aggression and they need to be given an accurate rating of aggression. So what I could do is I could get that questionnaire and give it to an expert in the field and just say, could you have a look at my questions? Do you feel like these questions are measuring what they set out to measure? So they would have a look at it on the face of it, not do anything, just have a read of it, be like, yeah, sure, I think that's fine. Or they might be like, no, actually, this question isn't really measuring aggression. You're not really measuring what you set out to, so you need to change that. Okay, so that's phase validity, someone just looking at your test, usually someone who's an expert in that field or has some experience in that field and just seeing if you are doing what you say you are doing. Then concurrent validity, this is where you compare it with a previously established test. So I could do with my questionnaire that I'm giving to parents to assess their child's aggression rating, I could give them another questionnaire that had been used on another test. So the questionnaire that someone has used to test aggression ratings previously, and they've had their research published, I could take that questionnaire, give that to the parents, and if they get a similar score on that questionnaire as they do in my questionnaire, then I know that that is valid because they're concur, they're the same. If, however, there is no correlation and they're completely different, then I need to look at my test again because it's not valid. So to assess internal validity, and internal validity is the idea that we measure just what we set out to measure, okay? We only manipulate the independent variable, nothing else. So we can test this using face validity. Does it look like it's measuring what it sets out to measure? And concurrent validity. Does it agree with another test that's already been used? We can improve internal validity in a number of ways. So we could use measures or scales that have previously been validated. So I could use that questionnaire that's already been used on a different test in my experiments. I shouldn't necessarily have to create my own, or I could use some questions off a previously established test and combine them with my own. I need to make sure I control all of my variables, so I know that it's just what I am changing that is affecting the results of the experiment. I could use a control group, so I could use my questionnaire on a control group of individuals as well as the ones that I'm looking at. I could standardise my experiment, so I can make sure when I give the parents the questionnaire, I give them the same instructions, I give them all the same amount of time to complete it, etc. I could use a lie scale or anonymity, so in my questionnaire I could make sure that there's questions in there just to trip them up to make sure that they're not lying. I could say that the questionnaire is anonymous, so they would be more likely to be truthful in their answers. There's less social desirability there. If, however, I was doing an observation, I could operationalise my behavioural category, so I can make sure that when I'm looking at aggressive behaviour, I'm very clear what I'm looking for, and I've got someone already to check and make sure that these are valid and these do measure aggressive behaviour. Or I could triangulate my results with other things. So if I'm looking at aggression ratings, I could do my observation, I could do my questionnaire, I could also give the questionnaire to teachers, I could give it to peers as well as the parents, and I could make sure that they match up and I'm getting similar results of all of them, so that would be triangulation. So you use a number of different methods, or you interview or give questionnaires to a number of different people and you triangulate all of their results to show that the data that you have collected and the methods that you have used are valid. So what we're looking at when we're improving internal validity is, have we got a control group, have we controlled our variables, have we used standardisation, have we operationalised, have we triangulated and used results from lots of different areas, lots of different types of results, so observations, questionnaires, etc. Have we used lie scales, are they anonymous? So then we've got external validity. This is the one that you're probably more familiar with. So this is the idea of generalisation, basically. Can we generalise our results? Are they valid? Are they truthful in other situations? So are they truthful in different times, with different people, in different places? So we've got temporal validity, we've got ecological validity and population validity. So again, if you haven't got definitions of those words, make sure you've got them in a glossary, make sure you write them down now and write a definition next to each. So again, temporal validity, population validity and ecological validity are all types of external validity. So external validity is when I've got my data and I've got my results, can I apply it in different settings, different times with different people? Is it truthful in different places? So internal validity is the measures that we're using. Are the measures that we're using truthful? Whereas external validity is our results. Are our results truthful? We can assess external validity by using the results from our experiment and predicting future results. So I would take the results from, say, Bandora's experiment and say, I predict that if I did this experiment with teenagers, this is the results I would get. I would see that they would imitate an aggressive role model, and boys would imitate more physical aggression than girls. And I would use that experiment with that different group of people, and if I got the same or similar results, then I would say yes, it's valid because I can predict what's going to happen. I could use Ash's experiment in today's society and I could test temporal validity. So I could take his experiment, do it today, and I could say, according to Ash, this is what's going to happen. And if I found the same results, then I could say, yes, his experiment is temporally valid. If I found different results, then I could say, actually, there is an issue with temporal validity here. So what we need to do is we need to improve that, or he should have improved it. So when we're thinking about external validity, we need to remember, does it apply in a different time or place, or does it apply with different people? If it does, then our experiment is valid, our results are valid. If it doesn't, then our results are not valid. So to improve external validity, what we could do is adjust the sample that we use. So we could use random sampling, we could use stratified sampling, we could use a larger sample, we could use a larger population which we take our sample from. So say we were doing that questionnaire of aggression, I could use more than one school. So I could use 10 schools from 10 different areas of the UK, and within those schools I could collect a stratified sample. That would improve my external validity, because then I could say, yes, it applies in different places and it applies to different people of different backgrounds. And also in my stratified sample I'd have boys and girls, and I could maybe try and include different ethnic minorities, different economic backgrounds, and I could say, yes, I've got a very, very varied sample, I've got different groups of people, and it's different areas, so yes, I can say that my study is valid because I've got the same or similar results from all of these different people. I could complete the study across different times, so I could do this study with different across a number of years. So I could do it every 5 years with different groups of people, or every 5 years with the same group of people to improve the validity of this. I could complete the study in different settings, so I could not only look at children's behaviour at school, I could look at them at home, I could look at them in a controlled environment, like a Bandora type study, and I could see if there's a correlation between all of these things. And just by improving your sample, using different people, using it across different times and in different settings, that means it's more likely to be externally valid, because it's more likely to apply to different populations across different times and different settings, so not just in a lab. Okay, so when we are looking at improving external validity, we need to think about our sample. We need to have different people, we need to make sure we use different sampling methods such as random or stratified sampling, and we need to make sure that we complete our study in lots of different places, or in different times. When I say different places, I mean different settings. So in a lab, do it as a field experiment, do it in different, so like Bandora, don't just do it in the lab, do it at, check them at playgroup, check them in their home, so across lots of different settings, not a specific place but more a different setting. Okay, so I'll just quickly recap. So we've looked at internal validity and we've looked at external validity. Internal validity is the method that we use and the test that we're using. Is that truthful? So is our method truthful? It's not affected by things such as demand characteristics or confounding variables. Is the test that we're using truthful, so it's not affected by social desirability? And then we've got external validity. So external validity is, do the results and the data that we've collected, do they apply to different times, different settings, and to different people? Okay, and you need to know how we would improve each of them, how we would assess each of them, and what each means. Okay, so have a look at the exam question. There's a little bit of an item there, and it's only a 2-marker, but it's really important that you read the question carefully. So have a go at that question, pause the video. It should take you about, I'd say, 4 minutes, because you really need to read that item. So have a read, try and answer the question. Okay, so if you have completed the question, it's really important when you look and you see it says, briefly explain one method the psychologist could use to check the validity of the data she collected. Okay, so we're thinking about validity, truthfulness, and then it says data. So are the results of this study truthful? Okay, she's not talking about the method or the test. It's to do with external validity, because we're looking at the data she collected, not how she collected it, just the data that she has collected. So what we could do is we could use the data that she has collected to predict results with different groups of people. So here she's used people from one particular company. So maybe if we think about a different group of people, so like students, she could use those results to predict what would happen with students, and then see if there's a correlation there. We could look at it across different times, so she could do the same study in 5 years' time and see if she got the same results. And then we could look at it in different settings. So with this, there's quite a lot of control there, so we could actually say, well, maybe she could look at it in a more realistic setting. So when they're actually doing a presentation at work and they're actually doing it in front of people, can we have a look at that and see if there's a correlation there in this real life setting? So this exam question, it's validity of the data she has collected, not how she has collected it, but the data that is collected. So we're looking at, are the results of this study truthful? Do they apply? Can we generalise them to different times, to different settings, and to different people? So that's temporal, ecological, and population validity. So that's 2 marks, quite a short question. What I would like you to do now is go on Google Classroom and complete the quiz. If you have any questions, put them in the comment box underneath your assignment. Make sure that you've got your definitions of the keywords from today's lesson on validity and last week's lesson on reliability. Now would be a really good time for you to do some revision flashcards and make sure you're aware of the difference between validity and reliability. So validity is truthfulness and reliability is consistency. Thank you.